is a scent that many children of the Vietnamese diaspora will never forget. It isn't the smell of pho simmering in the kitchen on a Sunday morning. It's not the smell of garlic and fish sauce. It is the smell of acetone and liquid monomer. It is the smell of sacrifice. That scent clung to our mothers' hair, their sweaters, their skin. It was the scent that lingered over dinner, paid the rent on our apartment, and paid for our college textbooks. When you drive through any city in America, you see them. The signs for nail salon, nail spa, nail designs. Over 50%. Some sources say 80% in California are Vietnamese owned. We built an $8 billion empire from nothing but dust and polish. But behind this glittering empire lies a much more complicated truth. A truth that lies somewhere between pride and ache. The story we tell is a success story, a true Hollywood story, about the actress Tippi Hedren and the first 20 Vietnamese refugees in Hope Village. We tell that story because it's beautiful. It shows American kindness and the unextinguishable Vietnamese entrepreneurial spirit. It affirms that the American dream is real, and we see symbols of that dream everywhere. On Reddit forums, people ask, "Why does my nail salon owner drive the newest BMW? How can they afford such a huge house just by doing nails? Are they laundering money?" We see the TikTok videos, a $600 cash day, and we see the image of wealth. But here is the first cognitive bomb. That BMW might just be financed by a lie. Data from the UCLA Labor Center paints a completely different picture. The median wage for a nail technician is just $10.94 an hour. $10.94. This number was below the legal minimum wage in many states at the time of the study. 80% of nail technicians are classified as low-wage workers. So, where does this paradox come from? How can an industry simultaneously create millionaires and maintain a workforce in poverty? The answer lies in a number, on a tax form, that many first-generation Vietnamese may have never understood the devastating meaning of. The number, 1,099. In America, there are two main ways to work. As an employee, you get a W-2 form. Your boss pays half, 7.65%, of your Social Security and Medicare taxes. You are protected by minimum wage laws. You get unemployment insurance. But as an independent contractor, you get a 1099 form. You must pay the entire 15.3% self-employment tax yourself. And here is the trap. So many salon owners treat their technicians like W-2 employees, forcing them to work set schedules, use salon supplies, wear uniforms, and take a 60-40 commission split. But at the end of the year, they hand that worker a 1099. This is a financial disaster for the worker. They lose unemployment benefits. They lose workers' compensation if they're injured, and they lose the protection of minimum wage laws. That is how $10.94 can exist. And the real emotional bomb is our mothers, our aunts, who didn't speak fluent English, who didn't understand complex tax law. They signed what they were told to sign, just to have a job. They were carrying double the tax burden without ever knowing it. The owner's Rolex was, in part, funded by the 7.65% FICA tax they saved from their own community. This isn't a story and none of white Americans exploiting Asian immigrants. It's a story far more complex, about what Vietnamese people had to do to survive. And sometimes it's about Vietnamese people exploiting Vietnamese people. So what about the wealth? Where did the startup capital come from, if not money laundering? Americans don't understand our culture. They don't know what Hui is. Hui or ROSCA, is a community-based financial system, completely legal, built on absolute trust. It's how a refugee, with no credit history, no collateral, could raise $20,000 in cash to open a salon. Hui helped them buy the shovel. The 1099 model helped them dig up more gold. And when California tried to fix this 1099 model with a law called AB5, forcing salon owners to classify technicians as W-2 employees, it was the Vietnamese salon owners who sued the state. They argued that AB5 was discriminating against them because it exempted barbers and hairdressers but targeted nail technicians. They said this law was destroying their American dream, the one they worked so hard to build. And this is the greatest tragedy of the story. The American dream of the first-generation owners is in direct conflict with the American dream of the newer generation of technicians. But the biggest truth, and the most painful, isn't on a tax form. It's in the body. We talk about the nail salon, but we rarely talk about the true cost of beauty. The cost of breathing in nail dust and acetone fumes 10, 12 hours a day. The cost of hunching your back to give a stranger a pedicure for tens of thousands of hours. Scientific studies have shown clear links between these chemicals and asthma, chronic skin conditions, musculoskeletal issues, and even reproductive issues. And when you are classified as a 1099, you have no workers' compensation. If you get sick, you have no paid sick days. If you don't work, you don't eat. The next time you sit down and pay $30 for a manicure, ask yourself, is that low price being subsidized by the health of the technician? The truth is, this $8 billion industry was built on the hands of Vietnamese women, hands that are calloused, cracked, stained with chemicals, hands that traded their health so their children, so we, could have a future where we wouldn't have to breathe the smell of acetone. So, what is the final truth? The truth is, there isn't one. The Vietnamese nail industry is both an incredible success story of entrepreneurship and resilience, and a system rife with sophisticated exploitation. The truth is, Generation 1.0, our parents' generation, did what they had to do to survive. But Generation 2.0, the young people who grew up here, who understand the law, who know their rights, they're starting to ask questions. They're demanding W-2s. They're demanding safe ventilation. The conflict in the nail industry is the conflict between survival and sustainability, between the communal culture of just accepting it and the individual laws of America. And perhaps the most beautiful and heartbreaking truth of all is that your mother's hands worked so hard so that you would never have to make a choice between your health and your rent. This story isn't for judgment. It's for understanding, for gratitude, and perhaps for change. If you or your family have been a part of this story, please share your experience in the comments. What is your truth? Thank you for listening. And don't forget to subscribe so we can keep telling the stories that are never old.